Is there a specifically American kind of anti-Semitism, do you think? Maybe I'll give that over to Mark because I know your brain is going. I can see it in your eyes.
Obviously, anti-Semitism is a virus that can mutate. I'm sure that Robert and probably others on this call are more expert in anti-Semitism and American anti-Semitism than I am. But a virus that can mutate takes slightly different forms depending on the context in which it manifests. And so I would argue that I'm sure that 21st century American anti-Semitism has unique dimensions to it. One of which I think has to do with our capacity to make sense of the context in which we're living, with the climate and the degree to which the climate we are in permits or even encourages hate, bullying, degradation of all kinds, and a climate that is dividing, othering, and just kind of uncorking, our lesser angels, which we know, that never goes well for the Jews. That just creates fertile ground for all kinds of hate, and anti-Semitism being one of them. I want to come back to the power of the anti-Semitism statistics for a second, because I think another challenge that we face when we talk about knowing our story and understanding our contemporary context, especially with our younger generation within our Jewish community, is this sense that we have to choose between what I call particular and universal values. That we have to kind of choose between a kind of what feels like a survivalism in terms of our own story protecting ourselves, which, by the way, has obviously been the historic stance of the Jewish community, living as an often persecuted minority, worried most about how to survive. That plus a kind of more humanistic, universal sense that, like, right now we have power, we have privilege, we have to worry about hate and bigotry directed toward others. Obviously, that is a false choice. The statistics bear it out. But I want to note that, we are fighting a bit of a battle here when it comes to kind of cultivating an understanding, especially, again, within our next generation, that it's not an either or, that actually understanding our own story and being eyes wide open about the hatred directed toward us actually is critical for our own survival and for our own Jewish identities, but also should make us better American citizens, better human beings, and should inspire and motivate us to stand kind of shoulder to shoulder with every other group that is persecuted, toward which hate is directed. That's obviously the power of Robert and ADL's work. But I think we need to unpack this a little bit. And I think it's another reason why Holocaust education and helping especially younger Jews to know our own story is really, really important right now.
Just locally in Massachusetts, within the last, 18 months, we saw a couple of synagogues, attempted firebombing of synagogues. And we saw in Fall River, Massachusetts, in the last 2 years, probably one of the worst Jewish cemetery desecrations, in the country. Probably got a little bit less media because it wasn't, it was in Fall River, smaller and smaller city, and not much of a Jewish population any longer. But those are targeted, intentional attacks. And, let's keep in mind that when an institution like that is attacked, you are also attacking all of the individuals, whether they have a personal connection to that cemetery or that synagogue, but it's an attack on the Jewish faith. And so it impacts everybody. And the other thing, following up on what Rabbi Baker just said, is that we see statistically the people that will target Jews, that disseminate and traffic in anti-Semitism, they also traffic in racism. They often traffic in misogyny. They're often part of all of these anti-immigrant movements. And so the people that, are often, making a case against Jews, they're making similar cases against other groups in the country.